The palace station did not orbit the planet so much as hover above it with deliberate arrogance. A lattice of silver corridors and translucent halls suspended against the velvet curve of space. Cole Drayton had learned over the years that places like this were never built for people like him. They were built to impress, to intimidate, and on bad days to remind security officers how small a single human body really was compared to politics measured in light years. He adjusted the collar of his formal uniform for the third time and resisted the urge to sigh loudly. The fabric was woven with micro-shielding threads, light enough to feel ceremonial, heavy enough to itch in precisely the wrong places. Somewhere behind him, a delegation from the Yell Accord argued politely in a language that sounded like glass chimes being dropped down a stairwell. Somewhere ahead, Queen Alpha stood beneath a suspended crown of holographic constellations, serene and untouchable. At least that was the idea. Cole stood at her left flank, exactly 2 steps back, exactly within the arc defined by royal protocol and common sense. He had memorized the rules so thoroughly that they now lived in his bones. 2 steps back. Never turn your back. Never speak unless addressed. Never under any circumstances crack a joke within earshot of the throne. He was already breaking that last one in his head. Alpha was taller than most humans, her posture impossibly straight, her presence bending the room without effort. She looked almost human at first glance. Smooth skin, expressive eyes, dark hair arranged in an elegant sweep, but the illusion always broke at the ears. They were long, tapering gently backward, adorned tonight with thin bands of light that shifted color in subtle patterns Cole still couldn't read. Her people could. They claimed it was obvious. Cole suspected they were lying out of tradition. The reception unfolded with agonizing precision. Speeches layered upon speeches. Toasts raised a piece that had only recently stopped being war. Cole scanned the crowd, letting the rhythm of his training settle his nerves. Biosignatures scrolled across the edge of his retinal display, each one tagged and verified. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous. That was usually when things went wrong. A minor fluctuation registered near the 3rd ambassadorial ring. Cole frowned, isolating the signal. It was weak, masked, and annoyingly clever. He shifted his weight, angling his body just enough to get a clearer line of sight without appearing to move at all. Of course, he muttered under his breath. It's always during the speeches. The fluctuation sharpened. A hand moved where it shouldn't. The world narrowed to a single terrible line of probability. And Cole's body made the decision before his mind caught up. He stepped forward. The blade emerged from concealment with brutal simplicity. No flourish, no warning, just intent given shape. Cole felt the impact a heartbeat later, a hot, shocking pressure just below his ribs. The sound that escaped him was less heroic than he would have liked. Security exploded into motion. The room filled with shouts, energy restraints snapping into place, the assassin tackled in a flurry of limbs and stunned disbelief. Cole staggered, then went down on one knee, his gloved hand coming away red. Queen Alpha turned. For the first time that night, the light bands on her ears flared bright and wild, patterns scattering like broken stars. She was at his side before protocol could stop her, one hand hovering uselessly, as if unsure where a queen was allowed to touch a bleeding human. "Cole Drayton," she said, her voice steady by sheer force of will. "Stay conscious." He looked up at her and smiled faintly. "You know," he said, breath hitching, "I always wanted to interrupt one of these things." Medical drones swept in, sealing the wound with practiced efficiency, lifting him onto a grav sled. As they moved him away, Cole caught one last glimpse of the hall. Faces pale, power structures rattled, and Alpha standing rigid, watching him with an expression no courtier could mistake. As consciousness slipped, he wondered, not for the first time, whether breaking the rules had ever really been optional. Cole surfaced from darkness in fragments. Sound came first, a soft, insistent hum, like a distant engine idling with patience. Light followed, filtered and cool, pressing against his closed eyelids without demanding anything of him. Pain arrived last, polite enough to knock before entering, then rude enough to stay. He decided not to open his eyes immediately. Experience had taught him that waking too fast after being stabbed generally led to disappointment. He took inventory instead. Arms present, legs present, chest felt stitched or glued or reassembled by someone with an advanced degree and questionable bedside humor. "Good," he murmured. "Still mostly me." A voice answered that was very much not part of the medical wing's standard automation. "You are awake." Cole frowned. That wasn't right. He opened one eye, then immediately regretted it as the room sharpened into focus. The ceiling arched high above him, translucent panels revealing slow-moving stars. Medical light fields hovered around the bed like disciplined ghosts. And seated beside him, far too close for comfort, far too real to be a hallucination, was Queen Alpha. He closed his eye again. "Ah," he said. "That's new." "You have closed your eyes," Alpha observed. "Yes," Cole replied carefully. "This is a coping strategy." Silence stretched. When he opened his eye again, she was still there, hands folded in her lap, posture immaculate despite the chair clearly not being designed for royalty. The light bands on her ears glowed dimly, a slow, unreadable pulse. "You are not imagining me," she said. "That's unfortunate," Cole said. "I was hoping this was the part where the meds get creative." Her lips twitched. It was subtle, fleeting, but unmistakable. "You were stabbed protecting me." "That part one remember," he said. "I was aiming for dramatic." "How did I do?" "You interrupted 3 ambassadors mid-sentence," she replied. "One of them fainted." Cole smiled weakly. Always nice to leave an impression. A medical drone drifted closer, its sensors flickering. "Patient cognitive function within acceptable parameters," it chimed. "Please refrain from humor that may increase blood pressure." Cole looked at it. "You're going to have a long night." The drone withdrew, offended or programmed to pretend to be. He shifted slightly and hissed as pain flared. Alpha leaned forward without thinking, then froze, clearly catching herself. The moment lingered, awkward and human despite the circumstances. "You should not be here," Cole said gently. "Isn't there a rule about queens hovering over wounded security officers?" "There are many rules," she said. "Most of them were written by people who were never stabbed." "That explains a lot about governance," he said. She did not leave. Time passed in odd, uneven stretches. Cole drifted in and out, waking to find her still there, sometimes speaking softly with physicians, sometimes simply watching the slow rise and fall of his chest as if it required supervision. When he woke again, the room felt different. Quieter, tense in a way that had nothing to do with his wound. "You've been here a while," he said. "Yes." "How long is a while in royal time?" he asked. "Because for me, it's usually 5 minutes before someone tells me I'm in the wrong place." "For hours," she said. He blinked. "You missed the entire debrief." "I postponed it." Cole stared at her. "You postponed the court." "I am the court," she replied not unkindly. He laughed, then immediately regretted it. "Worth it." Outside the medical wing, he could sense the palace station holding its breath. Alpha's presence here was a disruption, a fracture in something ancient and carefully balanced. He could practically hear the advisors panicking in elegant whispers. "You should go," he said, softer now. "They'll be circling." "They already are," she said. "Let them." Her ears shifted slightly, the light bands changing to a pattern Cole had never seen before. Low, steady, almost protective. He wondered if that was his imagination after all. "I failed you," she said suddenly. He frowned. "Last I checked, you're alive." "You were harmed," she said. "Because of me." Cole considered that. "I signed up knowing the odds. Besides, if I had to pick a way to get stabbed, this ranks surprisingly high." She looked at him, confused. "Good lighting," he added. "Excellent audience. Very memorable." This time she laughed. It startled both of them. When exhaustion finally claimed him again, he fell asleep knowing one thing for certain. Whatever line had existed between duty and something else had been crossed, and neither of them had been looking where they stepped. Cole dreamed of alarms that apologized before going off. They chimed softly, politely, as if aware that he had already been inconvenienced enough. When he surfaced again, the medical wing greeted him with the same patient hum, the same filtered starlight, and the same improbable constant. Queen Alpha was still there. She had moved at least. No longer perched rigidly beside the bed, she now stood near the transparent wall, hands clasped behind her back, gazing out at the slow drift of space. The light bands on her long ears glowed in muted tones that shifted with her breathing. Cole watched her for a moment, unsure whether to announce himself or pretend to be asleep out of professional courtesy. He chose neither. "So," he said hoarsely, "do I get loyalty points for repeat wake-ups, or is this a one-time deal?" She turned at once. Relief crossed her face too quickly to be hidden, then vanished behind composure that arrived half a second late. "You are improving." "That's what I keep telling the pain," he replied. It's not convinced yet. A medical console chimed in agreement, projecting a soft lattice of data above his chest. Nanofibers stitched muscle and skin with quiet diligence, glowing faintly as they worked. Cole squinted at it. I always find it unsettling when machines know exactly how broken I am. They are very thorough, Alpha said. I approve the most advanced treatment available. He raised an eyebrow. I hope it comes with a warranty. She stepped closer, then stopped herself again, as if invisible lines still mattered. The blade was treated with a resonance toxin. Human medicine alone would not have been sufficient. Good to know, Cole said. I always hate being insufficient. Her mouth curved despite herself. Humor, he was learning, unsettled her far more than blood or danger. Voices drifted in from beyond the medical wing, low, urgent, layered with restraint. Advisors, no doubt. The sound carried the weight of panic, disguised as respect. Alpha's ears shifted subtly, the light bands responding before her expression did. They are unhappy, Cole observed. They are horrified, she corrected, and deeply offended. Ah, he said, my specialty. She faced him fully now. You should be resting. I am, he said. This is my resting face. Another pause, heavier this time. The court is debating your reassignment, she said carefully. That sounds ominous. They cannot decide whether you're a liability or a symbol. Cole considered that. Can I be both? I like efficiency. Her gaze lingered on him, thoughtful, troubled. You altered the balance. Sorry, he said. I'll try not to do that again. Old habit. You did it by acting without hesitation, she said. You chose my life over your own. He shrugged as much as the bed would allow. Seemed rude not to. That earned him a look, one that carried curiosity, disbelief, and something dangerously close to admiration. She looked away first. Time stretched. Alpha remained. Meals arrived and were ignored. Council summons came and were deferred. The palace station adjusted around her absence like a structure accommodating an unexpected gravity. Well, Cole dozed, woke, spoke nonsense, woke again. At one point, he was fairly sure he explained human coffee culture in great detail while she listened, as if it were a military briefing. At another, he accused the medical drone of stealing his left sock. It denied this with impeccable dignity. When clarity returned, he found her seated again, closer than before. You have not slept, he said. I will, she replied. That's what I said about the stabbing, he muttered. Still happened. She studied him, then said quietly, I am not meant to be seen like this. Like what? Unarmored, she said. He glanced at her. Really? Look this time. The regalia was gone, replaced by a simpler garment, elegant but unadorned. No crown, no ceremonial light. Just her, long ears bare, eyes tired and very real. I think, Cole said slowly, this might be the least dangerous room in the entire station. She almost smiled again. Outside, the whispers grew louder. Inside, something unspoken settled between them, fragile and persistent. Cole closed his eyes, not to escape, but to hold on to the strange certainty that whatever came next would not be simple, and would definitely not be boring. The medical wing had developed a rhythm that Cole was beginning to recognize. Not a comforting one exactly, but a predictable one. Soft light cycles, distant hums, the occasional offended beep from a drone when he shifted too much, and always, always Queen Alpha. She had not left. This fact alone had apparently caused several minor political emergencies. Cole became aware of them indirectly. Raised voices filtered through the curved walls, advisors who arrived with carefully neutral expressions and left looking as though they had just witnessed gravity misbehaving. At one point, a delegation waited outside the wing for nearly an hour before being informed, politely, firmly, and with great finality, that the Queen was unavailable due to ongoing biological concerns. Cole had laughed at that, until his side hurt. You're causing a stir, he said once the pain subsided. Alpha, seated beside him with a data slate she had not looked at in several minutes, did not deny it. They are concerned about precedent. Ah yes, Cole said. The most dangerous thing in any empire. They say I am encouraging speculation. Also dangerous, he agreed. I once speculated about a free drink at a station bar. Started a brawl. She looked at him, clearly unsure whether this was a joke or a confession. Joke, he added. Mostly. The light bands on her ears flickered in a pattern he had come to associate with restrained amusement. He suspected her people would insist that interpretation was impossible. He suspected they were wrong. A physician entered, flanked by 2 hovering diagnostic units. He bowed too deeply, nearly colliding with a drone. "Your Majesty," he began, then hesitated, eyes darting to Cole, as if unsure whether to continue speaking in front of him. Alpha inclined her head. "Speak." "The patient's recovery is proceeding well," the physician said. "However, extended emotional stimuli. Are you saying I'm a medical risk?" Cole asked. The physician froze. "No," Alpha said smoothly. "He's asking you to explain." "Yes, of course," the physician said, sweating slightly. "Stress can impede nanofiber integration." Cole nodded. "You hear that? I'm delicate." Alpha's gaze did not leave the physician. "He will heal faster if he is comfortable." The physician glanced at Cole, then back at the Queen. "Yes, precisely." When they left, Cole exhaled slowly. "You terrify them." "They should be afraid of disappointing me," she said. "Remind me never to do that," he said. She looked at him, then really looked, and said nothing. Hours passed. Cole's strength returned in increments, like permissions slowly granted. He sat up for longer stretches. He learned to move without wincing. The wound itched in a way that promised scars and stories. The court could no longer pretend nothing was happening. A senior advisor finally breached the wing, armed with respect and desperation. He spoke in careful tones about appearances, stability, and the symbolic implications of prolonged proximity. Alpha listened without interruption, then dismissed him with a single sentence. "He saved my life," she said. "I will not abandon him to satisfy tradition." The advisor left pale and profoundly aware of history being written without his consent. Cole watched this unfold with a mixture of awe and concern. "You know they'll never stop talking about this." "They never stop talking," she replied. "This merely gives them something honest." That night, or whatever passed for night on a station that refused to acknowledge planetary cycles, Cole woke to find her asleep. She sat in the chair beside his bed, head tilted slightly forward, long ears relaxed, light bands dimmed almost to nothing. Without regalia, without tension, she looked younger, vulnerable in a way no one was ever meant to see. He considered waking her, thought better of it. A medical drone hovered close, projecting a warning about unauthorized observation of the monarch. Cole stared at it. "If you wake her," he whispered, "I will throw you into a recycling chute." The drone paused, processed this, and powered down its audio sensors. When Alpha woke later, she found him watching her with open curiosity. "You were asleep," she said. "So were you," he replied. "I win." She straightened immediately, color rising faintly in her cheeks. "That was unintentional." "Of course," he said. "Happens to the best of us, especially after almost losing a security officer." Her eyes held his. The humor faded, leaving something quieter, heavier. "I do not know what happens next," she said. "Neither do I," he admitted. "But I'm guessing it won't be boring." For the first time since the blade struck, the future felt less like a threat and more like an unanswered question, one neither of them seemed ready to avoid. Cole's first unauthorized step out of the medical bed was treated as a crime against both medicine and common sense. A drone immediately protested. Another summoned a physician. Somewhere deeper in the system, an alert tried very hard not to sound accusatory and failed. Cole, standing barefoot on the polished floor, held on to the edge of the bed and waited for the world to stop spinning. "It's fine," he said to no one in particular. "I've stood up after worse." The drone disagreed loudly. Queen Alpha looked up from where she had been reading a council brief she had no intention of finishing. The moment she saw him upright, her composure fractured in a way she did not bother to hide. "You are not cleared for," she began, then stopped herself and crossed the space between them in 2 strides that ignored every invisible boundary. She did not touch him, but she was close enough that he could feel the warmth of her presence, the faint hum of the personal field her species generated unconsciously. "I needed to remind my legs who's in charge," he said. They were getting ideas. "You could have fallen," she said. "Yes," he agreed. "But I didn't." Victory. Her long ears shifted sharply, the light bands flaring in a pattern that made the drones back away. "Return to the bed." He considered arguing, then sighed and sat. "See? Obedient." She did not smile, but the tension eased just enough to be noticeable. Word of his improvement spread faster than medical approval. By the end of the cycle, the wing felt crowded with anticipation. Advisors hovered outside like weather fronts. The court, unable to access the Queen directly, redirected its anxiety toward Cole, who had become a convenient focal point for every unresolved fear. He learned this when the questions started arriving, official inquiries, informal interviews disguised as wellness checks. One particularly bold council member asked him whether his act had been motivated by ideology, loyalty, or reckless impulse. "I slipped," Cole said. "Very unfortunate timing." That answer was recorded and later described as unhelpful. Alpha attended none of these discussions. She remained with him, an absence that spoke louder than any decree. The palace station adjusted its schedule around her refusal to return to the throne chamber. Meetings were delayed. Decisions were postponed. The entire structure of governance developed a limp. Cole watched this with growing unease. "You know they're rewriting their contingency manuals," he said one evening as the stars drifted slowly past the window. "They should," she replied. "They are outdated." "You're not worried?" "I am," she said, "but not about what they fear." He studied her, the calm lines of her face, the way her ears betrayed emotions her voice never would. "Then what are you worried about?" "That you believe this ends with your recovery," she said quietly. He laughed, then stopped when he realized she was serious. "I was hoping for a quiet reassignment. Maybe a desk. Something that doesn't involve blades." "You are already more than a security officer," she said. "That sounds suspiciously like a problem." "It is," she agreed, "for many reasons." The court finally forced the issue. A formal summons arrived, framed in politeness and urgency. Alpha read it once, then set it aside without comment. She did not go. Instead, she stood at the foot of Cole's bed and made an announcement that would later be described as unprecedented. "I will address the council here," she said. Cole blinked. "You're bringing the court into the medical wing." "Yes. They're going to hate that." "They already do." The chamber filled with controlled chaos. Holographic representatives flickered into existence, carefully framed to appear respectful while desperately searching for leverage. The atmosphere tightened as Alpha stood before them without crown or armor, long ears uncovered, posture unyielding. She spoke calmly about the attempt, about loyalty, about the cost of pretending that rulers were immune to fear or loss. She did not mention affection. She did not need to. Cole listened, stunned, as she dismantled centuries of protocol with precision and restraint. When she finished, silence followed. Not stunned silence, but the kind that acknowledged something irreversible. Afterward, when the projections faded and the room felt suddenly too large, Cole exhaled. "You realize they'll analyze every word of that for decades." "I hope they learn something," she said. He looked at her, at the Queen who had refused to leave his side, who had bent an empire rather than step away. Humor rose automatically, a shield against the weight of it all. "So," he said, "if this goes terribly wrong, do I get diplomatic immunity?" She smiled, then openly unguarded. "No. Worth asking." Outside the medical wing, the palace station resumed its orbit, altered in ways no sensor could measure. Inside, Cole lay back against the bed, aware that healing was no longer the most dangerous thing happening to him. Cole was discharged from a medical wing with far more ceremony than he felt was appropriate for a man who still walked like gravity held a personal grudge. 2 physicians, 3 drones, and 1 extremely stern recovery protocol saw him to the threshold. The wound had sealed cleanly, nanofibers dissolving back into his bloodstream with a satisfaction that bordered on smug. He felt stronger, clearer, and uncomfortably aware that the quiet cocoon he had inhabited was no longer an option. Queen Alpha walked beside him. Not ahead, not behind. Beside. The corridor outside the medical wing seemed to notice. Ambient lighting shifted, softening as they passed. A pair of guards snapped to attention, then hesitated, unsure which posture best fit a moment that would later be debated in academic journals. Cole leaned slightly toward her. "You know they're watching how many steps we take." "Yes," she said. I adjusted my stride. "For symbolism. For accuracy." He snorted before he could stop himself. "I'm honored." The palace station felt different now. Or perhaps he did. The vast halls no longer intimidated him so much as irritated him, like oversized furniture arranged by someone who had never had to patrol it. Screens whispered updates. Servants bowed too deeply. Everyone knew who he was. This, he decided, was worse than being stabbed. They reached a quiet observation gallery overlooking the planet below, its atmosphere painted in slow-moving auroras. Alpha paused there, hands resting lightly on the transparent barrier. "This is where I will leave you," she said. He frowned. "You make it sound final." "It is necessary," she replied. "At least publicly." "Ah," he said. "The old distance for everyone's comfort except ours maneuver." Her ears shifted, the light bands flickering in mild reproach. "You make it sound calculated." "I assume everything in your life is," he said gently. She turned to face him. Without the tension of the medical wing, without the immediacy of danger, the weight between them felt heavier, more real. "The court has decided," she said. "You will be reassigned." "That sounds familiar," he said. "Let me guess. Somewhere very safe, very quiet." "On the contrary," she said. "You will remain in royal security." He blinked. "They're letting me stay." "They are insisting," she corrected. "Your presence has become reassuring." "I don't think I've ever been described that way," he said. "They believe you are loyal beyond calculation," she said. "That you act before politics, which is apparently terrifying." "Terrifying good or terrifying bad?" "Yes." They stood in silence, the stars bearing witness with their usual indifference. Cole shifted his weight, suddenly uncertain. "There's something I should say," he began. Her gaze sharpened. "Then say it." He took a breath. Humor flickered to life, reflexive and unreliable. "I'm not particularly good at courtly distance or silence, or pretending I don't notice things." "I am aware," she said. "If staying near you complicates things," he continued, "I can request reassignment somewhere dull. I hear cargo escorts are very romantic in a deeply disappointing way." She studied him for a long moment. "You believe leaving would make this easier?" "For you," he said. "Not for me." Her ears lowered slightly, a posture he had learned meant sincerity unarmored by ceremony. "Your absence would not simplify anything," she said. "It would only make the questions louder." He exhaled. "That figures." She stepped closer, just enough that the hum of her personal field brushed his skin. "What I did in the medical wing cannot be undone," she said. "Nor do I regret it." "That makes one of us," he said, then softened. "No, that makes two." A faint smile touched her lips. "Good." A distant chime echoed through the gallery. Summons, reminders, the machinery of rule, resuming its endless motion. Alpha straightened, the queen returning to her posture as if drawn by invisible threads. "This is where we become careful," she said. Cole nodded. "I've never been great at that." "I know," she said. "That is why I trust you." She turned to leave, then paused without looking back. "You will attend the next state function," she added. He groaned. "You're trying to kill me again." "No," she said. "I am daring the court to survive you." As she walked away, Cole watched her go, aware that the distance between them was now measured not in steps or protocol, but in restraint. The wound at his side no longer hurt. That, he suspected, was about to become a problem. The next state function did not resemble the last. For one thing, the palace station had learned fear. Security fields layered the great hall in visible bands of translucent light, overlapping like the ribs of some vast, cautious creature. Guests moved more slowly, voices quieter, laughter restrained by the knowledge that history had recently tripped over itself right here. Every decorative surface now hid sensors. Every smile carried calculation. Cole Drayton stood at his assigned position and felt none of it. He had adjusted. That realization surprised him more than the ceremony. He stood straighter now, not because protocol demanded it, but because he wanted to see farther. His awareness no longer flickered nervously between exits. It settled, confident, expansive. He trusted his instincts in a way he hadn't before, trusted that stepping forward did not always mean falling apart. Across the hall, Queen Alpha entered beneath a cascade of shifting light. Her regalia had returned, elegant, unmistakable, but something about her bearing had changed. The long ears were uncovered again, light bands glowing in calm, readable patterns. Not defiance, not provocation. Honesty. The court noticed. Cole caught fragments of whispered analysis as his auditory filters sorted the room. Some called it strategy, some called it recklessness. One particularly anxious diplomat called it a dangerous trend. Cole approved of that phrasing. The evening unfolded without incident. Speeches concluded. Treaties were reaffirmed. A delegation from the outer systems attempted a joke and failed so badly that Cole briefly considered intervening for humanitarian reasons. The universe, it seemed, had decided to let them finish this night intact. Near the end, Alpha approached him. Not directly, not improperly, but close enough that only training allowed him not to react. Still standing, she said quietly. So far, he replied. I've learned it's wise not to tempt fate. She glanced at him, amused. You have grown. You know, he said, I'm full of surprises. Her attention lingered on him just a moment longer than etiquette allowed. Then she turned away, leaving behind a silence that felt intentional rather than empty. Later, when the guests had departed and the palace station exhaled, Cole found himself summoned. Not by alarm, not by command, but by choice. He followed the guidance lights to a private observation chamber, high above the planet's limb. Alpha was there alone. No crown this time, no court. Just the quiet hum of the station and the slow, luminous arc of the world below. You should not be here without escort, he said automatically. I dismiss them, she replied. You are here. He considered that, then nodded. Fair point. They stood side by side, neither rushing the moment. Outside, satellites traced patient paths like thoughts finding order. The court has settled, she said. They have accepted that what happened cannot be undone. And you, he asked. She turned to him fully. I have accepted that I do not wish it undone. There it was. Not dramatic, not ceremonial. Just truth. Cole felt something inside him loosen, a knot he hadn't known he was carrying. He laughed softly, a sound edged with disbelief. You know, he said, I used to think my job was to disappear behind people like you. Keep the danger away. Leave no mark. And now, she asked. And now I know that stepping forward can matter, he said, even when it complicates everything. She studied him, long ears angled slightly toward him, unguarded. You have changed. So have you, he said. Yes, she agreed. I have. The silence that followed was not heavy. It was complete. I will not pretend this is simple, Alpha said at last. My position will always demand restraint, distance, choices measured against consequence. I wouldn't trust a queen who didn't think that way, Cole said. But I will no longer pretend that connection is weakness, she continued, nor that sacrifice should be ignored once it has passed. He met her gaze, steady now. Then I'll do my part. I'll protect what needs protecting, and I'll try not to get stabbed again. She smiled fully this time. I would appreciate that. A chime sounded softly, routine, unthreatening, the station continuing its endless watch. Alpha turned back toward the stars. Stay, she said. Not a command, not a plea. An invitation. Cole stood beside her, the past settling into place behind him, the future no longer something to brace against. He had entered the palace station as a man whose duty was to be unseen. He would leave it changed, still a protector, still a security officer, but now something more deliberate, someone who knew when to step forward. Above the planet, beneath the quiet machinery of the stars, the queen and the man who had saved her stood without speaking. And for once, nothing more was required.